Thunder rolled across the hills, tearing through the night like an angry spirit. Rain poured in wild sheets, beating against the land that trembled beneath its roar. The sky flashed open for a heartbeat, showing a lonely hut standing against the storm. From inside came a cry, sharp, breaking, filled with pain and fear. Another cry followed, louder, echoing through the sleeping town. The storm answered with thunder. Somewhere, a rooster stirred, confused by the light that was not dawn. But the cries did not stop. "Please, take me to the hospital." The voice came again, strained and trembling, carried away by the wind. Inside, shadows moved restlessly. A man's footsteps beat the floor like a drum. His breath came short. "No, she must give birth here," he muttered under the sound of the rain. "This is how it must be." The lamp burned weakly, its flame shaking with the wind that sneaked through the cracks. The air grew heavy with the scent of oil and fear. Outside, the cries reached the ears of those nearby. Lanterns flickered to life under umbrellas as neighbors stepped out, their faces pale in the lightning flashes. One voice rose above the others. "Open the door." No answer. Only the pounding rain and another cry, softer now, weaker. The neighbors gathered, whispering under the storm. "He won't open," one said. "Something is wrong." Another shook her head. "The spirits are angry tonight." The wind howled again, carrying the woman's fading voice into the dark hills, where thunder waited to strike once more. The door shook under the storm, but his body stood firm against it. No one would pass. His voice cut through the rain like a blade. "No one enters this house tonight." The villagers begged from outside. Hands struck the door. Voices rose and fell in fear. "Open the door! She needs help!" But he did not move. His eyes burned, fixed on the wooden frame that kept the world away. Whispers grew under the thunder. "What kind of man keeps his wife in pain?" One voice muttered. "He has lost his mind," another hissed. The rain grew louder, drowning their words but not their fear. Rumors moved through the crowd like wind through dry leaves. His mother warned him. "No hospital births," someone said. She told him a curse would follow. A few nodded, faces pale under the flicker of lanterns. "That man has been acting strange for weeks," came another voice. A boy, barely tall enough to hold his umbrella, whispered, "Maybe there's a curse." The words made even the old ones shiver. Then a name passed between them. Mama Ifeoma. The sound of it carried weight. "She told him the spirits will punish him if he breaks tradition," an old woman said. The others drew closer, afraid the spirits might hear their disbelief. Inside, the cries were fading. The storm roared, but the voice that had fought against it grew weak. Breaths came shallow, words soft. "Please, help me!" The sound reached the door, trembled there, and vanished into the rain. No one moved. No one dared. The fear of spirits weighed heavier than the sound of a dying woman. The night held its breath as thunder rolled again over Obudu. The rain grew wild, slamming against the roof until it groaned. The crowd outside shivered, fear mixing with anger. "If he doesn't open that door, she'll die," someone shouted. The sound was swallowed by thunder, but the worry stayed. Inside, he did not move. His eyes were hard. His lips whispered to spirits only he could hear. His hands trembled, but he stayed still, as if bound by something older than fear. The villagers watched, their hearts pounding louder than the storm. Another voice rose from the crowd. "The spirits will not save her. Open the door." But the door stood firm. No one crossed it. The air around it felt cursed. Then came a sound, sharp, tearing, full of pain. A scream that shook the night, then stopped too soon. The rain seemed to hold its breath. The villagers froze. No one spoke. Only thunder rolled over their heads like a warning from the sky. "What happened?" a woman whispered, clutching her chest. Eyes darted to the windows, to the cracks in the wood. No answer came. The only sound was the rain. The lamp inside flickered once, then dimmed. Shadows swallowed the little light that was left. No movement, no voice. "He's killed her." "Or the baby," someone murmured. The words cut through the silence like a knife. Still, the door stayed shut. The people stood in the storm, helpless, waiting for a sound that never came. The thunder rolled again, slow and distant, as if the heavens mourned what men had done. And when all hope had drowned beneath the rain, a single voice broke through the dark. Why would a man let his own wife suffer like this? Laughter filled the air, bright and full, like the sound of drums on a clear morning. Two hearts moved as one, hands working, eyes meeting, smiles passing between them. At the market, they worked side by side, teasing, trading, and sharing roasted groundnuts. Their voices blended with the hum of life around them. The people watched with warmth. "Always together like morning and sun," someone said, and all nodded. Even the elders smiled, for love that pure was rare. The days passed soft and golden, each one brighter than the last. But the sky does not stay clear forever. Somewhere far above, a storm began to stir. Then came the sound of a stick striking the earth, slow, steady, like the beat of warning drums. She walked in without calling, her eyes sharp and knowing. Her gaze swept the house, pausing at every corner, as if the walls could whisper secrets. "So this is how you live, forgetting where you came from?" The young woman bowed her head, silent. The air turned heavy, the laughter that once filled the home now trapped in her throat. The older woman's words were firm, wrapped in pride and sorrow. No one answered. The quiet between them grew thick, like a storm waiting to break. That night, over dinner, the elder's voice turned cold. "Remember, her blood carries bad luck. Her sisters all died before 30. The spoon fell, the sound sharp and sudden. A trembling hand reached for it, but the words had already cut deep. Do not say that again, but faith burned stronger than reason. The ancestors speak through me, son." The words hung in the air, unshaken by protest. The meal turned to ash, and silence swallowed the rest. At dawn, the voice of warning rose again. "When the child comes, let its first cry be heard here, in this land of our fathers." A slow nod answered, unsure and heavy. "Times have changed. Hospitals are safe." "The spirits do not live in hospitals, my daughter." The morning broke with their voices clashing, love and culture wrestling in the air like two storms meeting above the same sky. And though the sun rose as always, something in the light had changed. The peace that once warmed their home had begun to fade, carried away by winds older than love itself. The night carried a heavy silence. Under the old mango tree, the sound of crickets filled the air, then faded as footsteps drew near. The voice came firm, wrapped in warning. "Promise me you will not take her to the hospital. Promise, or you will anger our fathers." A deep breath followed. The air trembled between faith and fear. "I promise, Mama." The wind stopped moving. Even the crickets refused to sing. The trees seemed to listen as the promise hung in the dark, sealing fate like a secret vow. Days passed quietly, but worry sat deep inside her chest. When the house emptied, she wrapped her shawl and walked swiftly down the narrow path. The nurse smiled warmly. "You're almost due, my dear. You must deliver in a hospital." Her heart eased until the doctor spoke. "You have a risk. The baby must not come at home." Her hands found her belly, trembling. A whisper escaped her lips. "God help me convince my husband, but fate listens too closely sometimes." Later, as clothes were folded and silence filled the home, a small paper slipped loose. A clinic receipt hidden under cloth. It glowed like a betrayal in the faint light. The voice rose, sharp and wounded. "You went behind my back?" Another voice met it, calm but fierce. "I did it to protect our child." The words struck like stones. Pride met fear, love met anger. Their voices clashed and carried through the walls, echoing across the yard. Then came the sound, the old staff hitting the ground. The echo silenced them both. "This is the curse I spoke of. She defies her husband." Eyes dropped, heavy with confusion. The weight of blood and belief pulled him in both directions. The young woman stood firm. "If obeying tradition means dying, then let your ancestors judge me." A hiss escaped, filled with scorn. "Your tongue is too sharp, Adora." The silence that followed was louder than thunder. Between faith and life, between love and law, something had broken, and the storm that once waited in the distance was now on its way. The night weighed heavy, thick with whispers only the wind could hear. He sat alone beneath the pale moon, head buried in trembling hands. A voice rose within him, sharp and commanding, "Defy me and the spirits will curse you." Another followed, softer, desperate. "Hospitals save lives." Two truths pulled at one heart, both wrapped in love, both heavy with fear. The silence stretched long and deep, until a faint whisper escaped him. Whose voice should I follow? Morning crept in gently, carrying the smell of dew and dust. A soft greeting met him, filled with fragile hope. A smile came in return, but it was hollow, forced, a mask for the ache inside. From afar, the sound of quiet prayers rose and fell, words too old to question. The wind swept through, stirring dry leaves and unsettled hearts. It carried a warning that peace had only borrowed time. The days that followed felt slower, colder. The house once full of laughter now echoed with silence. She moved softly, folding clothes, washing hands, preparing for the moment that drew closer each day. Yet her eyes carried questions no one dared answer. The old woman's watch grew sharper. Rules multiplied. Every step, every breath, watched, weighed, and whispered upon. He walked the same paths but felt like a shadow, torn between the love that healed him and the fear that bound him. The storyteller's voice broke through, calm but heavy. In the silence before birth, storms gather unseen. Dawn arrived with trembling hands. The bag sat ready, small and simple. Eyes swollen, she whispered, "Please, let's go to the city." "I'm scared." The words fell like rain against stone. His voice came back hard, almost foreign. "Mama said no child of ours will cry outside this land." Thunder rolled far away, deep and ancient, as if the ancestors themselves had opened their eyes. The promise once made under the mango tree had begun to demand its price. She fell to her knees, hands shaking as they clung to his. "You promised to protect me, not traditions." Her voice cracked like dry earth in the heat. But his face was stone. "You don't understand. If we disobey, something terrible will happen." The air between them turned heavy. Her tears dropped to the floor. His eyes drifted away. What once was love now felt like distance, wide, silent, and deeper than any storm could reach. The next day, whispers began to stir by the old market well. Women filled their calabashes slowly, voices low but sharp. "Did you hear? His wife wants to run away." Another replied, "They say the mother took him to the shrine last moon." One woman spat on the ground. "That family carries darkness." Laughter followed, short and bitter, before turning into silence. Even the sound of water seemed to hush at the name they spoke. The truth of those whispers lived in the past. He once stood before the village priest, trembling as the calabash filled with red oil gleamed under firelight. "Swear," the priest said, "that your child's first cry will bless your father's grave." His lips repeated the words. A cut was made. A drop of blood fell into the oil. The priest smiled. "The spirits will watch." And from that moment his soul was no longer his alone. Night came heavy with fear. She woke to see strange marks painted across the walls, black, curved, and pulsing with mystery. Outside, soft chants rose and fell. "Mama, what are you doing?" The old voice answered without turning. "Protecting my son's home." The chant continued, slow and endless. The clay pot before her glowed faintly under the moonlight. Morning brought footsteps, quick, urgent. A friend burst through the gate, breathless. "You must leave before it's too late." But a shout cut through her words. "You will not speak to my wife again. You're not protecting her. You're trapping her." The sound of a slap echoed like thunder. Doors creaked open, faces peeked from corners. No one spoke. Only dust rose into the air, silent witnesses to a house drowning in fear. The forest waited in silence, heavy with secrets. The man moved through the shadows until he reached the small hut that smelled of roots and smoke. The old one inside laughed softly, shaking a gourd that rattled like bones. "You will be rich," came the promise, smooth and sure. "But the child must take his first breath where your father rests." A shiver ran down his spine. "And if not?" The gourd stopped shaking. "Then poverty will cling to your bloodline forever." The words hung in the air, sharp as a blade. He nodded slowly, knowing the deal was sealed. The forest listened. The spirits smiled. At sunrise, the cry of a black crow tore through the air. Cra! Cra! It perched on the thatched roof and refused to leave. The people gathered, whispering in fear. A crow before birth is death before dawn. The old woman waved her hand, her voice hard. Old women's tales. But the young wife stood still, heart pounding. The crow turned its head toward her and screeched again. The sound followed her into her dreams that night. Days turned cold. No laughter came from the house. Smoke rose every evening, thick and bitter. He burned herbs, praying the spirits would stay calm. But the neighbors began to pass by in silence, crossing to the other side of the road. That home smells of curses, they whispered. Once the house had been filled with love. Now it was only walls and fear. Then came the storm inside. If you love me, take me to the hospital, she cried, clutching her belly. You want me cursed forever? He shouted back, eyes wild. Then you care more for ghosts than for me. Her voice cracked. From the doorway, the old woman watched, her eyes dark with something like victory. The man turned away, the fire dying inside him. The woman's tears fell to the floor, and the house went silent once more. The night was heavy with rain. The woman moved quietly, clutching her small bag close. Her breath came fast as she reached the gate and pulled, but the iron did not move. Chains held it tight, cold and unyielding. A shadow shifted behind her. A voice came, calm but final. No one leaves. The chains rattled as the key turned once more. The rain fell harder, just like that first night, when everything began to change. Pain twisted through her body. It's time, she cried, clutching her belly. The man stood still, eyes wide, heart pounding between fear and faith. Then came the whisper, deep, distant, and cold. Do not fail me. His hands trembled. The key dug into his palm, but he held it tight. The gate stayed locked. The woman's cries filled the night, echoing against the storm. Lanterns soon flickered outside. Voices rose. Let us in, they shouted. She needs help! But another voice, strong and sharp, cut through the rain. Go home. The ancestors are at work. The thunder broke across the sky, and lightning danced above the roofs. Inside, her screams grew louder, fierce and endless, like the cry of a spirit refusing to die. Then, silence. The air went still. The crow shrieked once, its wings cutting through the darkness before it vanished into the storm. The people looked at one another, fear frozen on their faces. Inside the house, the man stood by the door, unable to move. The air around him was thick with something unseen. The night swallowed every sound. The sky roared again over Obudu. Rain poured as if the heavens themselves were mourning. A lamp burned low, its flame trembling. Tonight the ancestors will speak, a voice whispered. Inside, another scream tore through the storm. Spirits of our fathers, witness this birth, came the desperate cry. But thunder answered instead, deep, final, and endless. And then, once again, there was only silence. The storm roared outside as the woman clutched her belly, gasping for air. Please, the baby. It's coming too fast. Her words broke through the thunder, desperate and weak. The man stood over her, face pale, but voice steady. No one must touch you. This child belongs to our blood. She cried out again, pain twisting through her body. You're killing us both. But his feet did not move. The sound of rain grew louder, washing away her tears as fear filled the air. The pounding came next, fists against wood, voices cutting through the storm. Open up, let her go to the clinic. The door rattled beneath their blows, but inside the man gripped his machete, shaking. Anyone who enters will face the ancestors' wrath. His voice rose with the wind, and the thunder answered with a deafening crack. The neighbors stepped back, fear and anger mixing in their eyes. The rain carried their shouts away, leaving only the echo of helplessness. In the dim light, the old woman's hands trembled. Her eyes searched her son's face, wild and lost. My son, she whispered, this is not the tradition I taught you. His head snapped up, voice sharp. You told me the first cry must bless the land. She stared at him, silence heavy between them. Something darker than faith had taken hold. She could feel it, the old spirits twisting their truth. The woman on the mat stirred, her strength fading like a dying flame. "Help me," she whispered, her voice barely reaching the others. The storm swallowed her words. The old woman moved closer, her heart breaking. "This is not what the spirits wanted," she murmured, tears tracing lines down her wrinkled cheeks. The wind howled, the rain poured harder, and somewhere beneath it all, the sound of one final breath slipped into the night. The door shatters with a loud crack as she kicks it open, lantern held high. The villagers surge forward, their voices raw with fear and anger. "Move!" she shouts, the light swinging wildly across the walls. He steps in front of the doorway, machete raised, stance firm. "Stay back! You know nothing of my family's curse." His voice trembles, but his eyes burn with determination. The lantern flickers, shadows twisting as the storm pours outside. Villagers scream, pleading, their hands reaching forward. "You're killing your wife," she cries, stepping closer, voice sharp. His hands shake, lips moving in a strange chant, the old words of warning spilling into the air. The machete slips from his grip, hitting the floor with a heavy thud, but the fire in his eyes does not die. Silence falls suddenly. She steps forward again, lantern light trembling on her face. "Tell them the truth. Tell them about the herbalist." All eyes turn toward him. Breath catches in the room, broken only by the faint wheeze of the woman lying there. He swallows hard, voice quivering. He said, "If my wife gives birth here, our business will rise again." He promised wealth. The words hang in the air like smoke. Shock spreads across the room. The older woman gasps sharply, her hands trembling. "You lied to us all. You used tradition for greed. You lied to us all. You used tradition for greed." Anger and grief crash over him. A hard slap lands across his face, knocking him to his knees. "You brought shame to our ancestors," she cries. He sobs, shoulders shaking. "I only wanted to save our family." Her voice cracks, full of sorrow and rage. "At what cost? You traded your child for riches." The neighbors whisper in horror, some drawing protective symbols in the air, others turning away, unable to watch the betrayal of love and faith unfold. The storm rages outside, echoing the chaos inside, as the truth burns brighter than any lightning. Adaora screams, sharp and raw, tearing through the night. Her body trembles and then goes still. The villagers surge forward, hands reaching for her. A trembling hand clasps hers, eyes wide with fear. "The baby," she whispers, voice barely audible. "Save the baby." A single cry pierces the silence. Life enters the world, yet stillness follows. The cry fades into silence as the newborn lies in fragile quiet. The villagers freeze, hearts pounding, unsure whether to rejoice or mourn. A sudden gust sweeps through the hut, scattering charms, knocking over clay pots. The lamp flickers and dies, leaving only jagged lightning to illuminate faces frozen in horror. The voice of authority falls to the ground, shaking. The ancestors reject this offering. The words strike the air like a drum of doom. A man clutches his head, eyes wide with desperation. "No, I did everything you wanted," he screams, voice breaking, echoing into the storm. The rain lashes down, blinding and cold. He stumbles into the open, soaked to the skin, arms raised to the sky. "Father, I did it for you. Bless me now." Lightning rips the sky, striking a tree beside him with a thunderous crash. The earth shudders. Villagers cry out in fear as he collapses, unmoving, into the mud and water. When the storm relents, quiet hangs over the village like a shroud. By the riverbank, his body lies still, the charm bag beside him reduced to ashes. Smoke mingles with the wet earth, a bitter scent of destruction. A hand trembles as it covers him, whispered words lost in the damp air. "May the spirits forgive him." Silence answers, heavy and complete as the village holds its breath, knowing some debts cannot be repaid. The first light creeps over Obudu, weak and gray after the storm. The village moves slowly, steps heavy with sorrow, faces etched with grief. A small cloth clutched tightly in hands trembles in silent prayer. The land has taken what it gave. A whisper floats into the quiet, carrying the weight of loss and regret. She opens her eyes to the empty arms beside her. Weak, trembling, a faint voice breaks the hush. Where is my baby? Eyes lowered, a hand rests gently on her shoulder. Rest, my sister. You are alive. That is enough. Tears stream silently, some hidden, some falling openly. A heart that once sought obedience to spirits now mourns the cost of blind tradition. The echoes of the past night linger, mixing with the distant call of a rooster heralding a new day. The villagers gather slowly, murmuring among themselves. One by one they nod toward the small white cloth, remnants of charms and promises burned in the storm. Ash scatters in the wind, a symbol of curses undone. Let this curse end here. The whisper rises, firm yet sorrowful, by the old mango tree. A small mound lies untouched by celebration, a quiet testament to the innocence lost. Soft drumbeats mark the rhythm of mourning, filling the air with a solemn heartbeat. Wrappers torn, grief uncontained, the one who guided tradition falls to her knees. Forgive me, my child. The cry shatters the morning stillness, for I listened to the wrong spirits. The young mother stands still, holding nothing, eyes dry but hollow with the weight of silence. Around her, the village breathes, mourns, and bears witness to the end of one story and the quiet birth of lessons too costly to forget. The wind carries whispers of repentance, of traditions misused, and of the fragile line between obedience and mercy. Light spreads slowly across the land, and the screen fades to black, leaving only the memory of loss and survival. Whispers ripple through the village. Tradition has turned against its own, women murmur, voices trembling with fear and sorrow. The men shake their heads slowly, lips tight. The gods do not ask for innocent blood, they say, the weight of truth heavy in their words. A priest steps forward, hands folded over a calabash. Let this serve as a lesson. Greed wears the mask of faith, he warns, eyes dark with knowledge of the past and the consequences to come. Days pass like shadows, and he wakes by the riverbank, weak and shivering. Memories of the cries, the locked doors, and the storm press on him like stones. His mother's anguished wails echo endlessly in his mind. Where is my child? He asks into the silent air, but no answer comes. The villagers turn their backs as he limps through the streets, the weight of shame pressing on his shoulders. Each night, the wind carries a sound that gnaws at his soul. A baby's cry drifts from the river, high and plaintive. He runs, arms outstretched, shouting, "I'm sorry! Forgive me!" Only the wind answers, twisting through the reeds, mocking and relentless. His shop crumbles, customers vanish without a trace, and debts rise like smoke from a fire that refuses to die. Prosperity retreats, leaving only hunger and despair. Beneath the mango tree where sorrow sleeps, she sits alone. Food is offered, hands pressed forward in hope, but she shakes her head, refusing all. I told him to respect the ancestors, the whisper floats, bitter and broken. But I never meant this. The village watches from a distance. Silence heavy, the lesson written in the shadows of grief, in the cries that will not cease, and in the land that keeps its secrets. The air hangs still, carrying only regret, the echoes of the lost child, and the unyielding weight of a curse that will not forget. Whispers of the past linger as the first light brushes the red earth. She lifts her small bag, fingers trembling, and looks back once. The village breathes quietly behind her. Stay, my sister. The village still needs you, a voice pleads, soft but urgent. She shakes her head, eyes firm. Obudu took too much from me. Her feet follow the red path, steps swallowed by morning mist. The wind carries only the sound of her leaving, and the trees bow in sorrow. Weeks pass, and the city hums with life. She arrives, weary but determined, a stranger among the tall walls and busy streets. She rents a small room and begins work at a maternity clinic, where fear paints every young mother's face. She kneels beside them, clutching trembling hands. You will live. Your child will live, she whispers, her voice steady as a drumbeat, offering courage where once there was only loss. Far away, he wanders through fields emptied of laughter. Children run past, their whispers sharp as knives. The cursed man. Every night, he kneels by the river, words falling like rain. I'm sorry, my son, he repeats over and over. The water shimmers, and sometimes he swears the baby's face floats just beneath the surface, a ghostly reminder of what he cannot undo. Months later, silence comes with a soft sigh. She watches the village gather as the final breath leaves her mother's body. Fingers clutch a small wooden carving of the child never held. The villagers lay her to rest beside the grandchild she never saw, and the priest's voice rises, solemn and calm. Let peace return to this home. The ancestors have spoken, the wind settles, the land breathes again, and in the quiet, lessons are remembered, pain softened by time, and the cycle of sorrow and redemption rests, waiting for the next story. Years pass, and her name spreads quietly through the city, carried on the lips of women who once trembled in fear. She moves among them like a steady drumbeat, guiding hands, softening cries, giving courage where once there was none. Mothers call her Mama Hope, and she wears the title like a shield. When whispers ask about the pain behind her eyes, she smiles faintly, voice gentle yet firm. Never let fear or greed choose for you. Choose love, always. A candle flickers beside her window, dancing shadows across the walls. The night carries a soft cry, a baby's first, tender and free. She leans close, whispering to the stars. Rest now, my child. The curse is broken. Elsewhere, new life enters the world. She bends over a newborn, hands trembling with care. The first cry fills the room, soft, strong, carrying the weight of hope. She breathes the words that carry the lesson of years. Live, little one. Live. The nurses exchange quiet smiles, sensing the peace that has returned to her eyes, the calm of a story finely balanced. The drums fade, only the voice of wisdom rises, steady and deep. In many lands, it says, old ways guide the young, but when tradition turns greedy, it eats its own children. The night holds the truth, like an elder by the evening fire, letting the tale linger, gentle but unshakable, a reminder of love's enduring power over fear and greed.